Well, I'm using my Dolphins uniform and everything. Now we have to do is this. I don't know about football, but I mean American football. That's what it's called outside the United States, and Canada. Well, we gonna find out something about the breaking the code, breaking the bullshit code, and then what I have to do with this thing. I know the Miami Dolphins has beaten 27-14 against the Chicago Bears. I kept seeing crying teddy bears. Yeah, it was so cute to see crying teddy bears, but that was awesome. Yeah, I live in Miami. Guess what? Dolphins fans. So, if what you have talking about is this, I could wonder if a woman could know something. I would just have more trust on a vlogger or thing. Would you guys gonna criticize her and everything? Look, I am there just to defend, and whether the rights who it is, people are talking a bunch of BS, a bunch of shit. Excuse my language. And then what it is this: you have to crack the cat out of the bag. I want to see this thing out of the bag, since whatever it is of putting down a newspaper, labeled it like it was a supermarket tabloid. This would be to believe in something that is totally true. Whoa, one of these days that I could tell you what. You know what? The devil's coming to Georgia. Let me tell you why the devil's coming to Georgia. Alright, before I tell you about the devil coming to Georgia, there was the pitcher named Yasuki Iriki playing in the New York Mets in 2006. So, what is this page of this article out of the New York Times believing? Yeah, it is a newspaper. Finally, what it is. It's just a supermarket tabloid in disguise, and put it that way in that kind of article. He will say that Yasuki Iriki was suspended for 50 games for steroid use. That is just 100% complete bullshit, because he definitely ended his career in Japan. Why? Because New York Times was, who else paid for the New York Times? Who paid to say that kind of shit? They paid Jose Canseco to pay him to say this kind of bullshit for the New York Times. Well, there are three people that is going to be suspended from the New York Yankees, for steroid use. For what? They didn't use steroids. This is not Roger Clemens using Performance Enhancement Drugs or steroids. We're using HGH or none of these. These people are going to be left out in the blank. Even the New York Post posts that stuff. But the only thing what it would happen is this. This would be the reason why this article about this minor league player was a totally 100% complete bullshit, because it was paid. The New York Times has paid Jose Canseco. Jose Canseco is working in secret with the New York Times to just blame a Japanese baseball player back in 2006 for false accusations of steroid use because he's Japanese. That's the reason why. And this is where what happened, that 3 of the New York Yankees baseball players are going to be suspended, not just by the Major League Baseball. It's going to be paid by Jose Canseco, supporting Korea, supporting the New York Times. For what kind of reason? This is where the devil comes to Georgia. This would be that what would be saying that they'll have a chance to just work with some Georgia newspaper, some Atlanta-based newspaper, for what? To show a talent for tainted players. Maybe the New York Post is ready to even be singled out, putting in New York supermarkets next to the in the same aisle as the next to the National Enquirer, where you all see all this gossip and with all the gossip and bullshit as how it's going to be treated over there. How? It is that we're going to find the truth of one of the new Atlanta Braves players when there are Koreans, and that like they going to have a suspension of what would happen, suspension of the day when that cat comes out of the bag, breaking up the bullshit code would be, here we go. It can be, here we go. Yes, this is an article written by the New York Post, being pro-Japan and about it. And then what it see about false accusation, the first thing they will do is for what kind of suspension? This would be kind of odd that these guys are going to have a 3-day suspension, suspension for 3 days. Why are they going to suspend 3 Korean baseball players for PEDs for 3 days for using performance enhancement drugs? The reason why would be is that they're just going to pay them. They just say that in the New York Times article says false accusations, because false accusations, that means that's the kind of bullshit they're going to give you right there, serving a silver platter. This is where it goes. That I could tell you this: if I'm insane, Yankee fans, for real, Yankee fans, let me tell you what will happen. But when the Atlanta Braves would have a 3-day suspension for like 3 or 7 Korean baseball players. Why does 3 days? But let me tell you why 3 days. Because it will start in the regular season that like I saying that the devil comes to Georgia, that they would be like paid by another newspaper based in Georgia, saying that this is where it goes. This is where the fiddler will be the 3 Japanese players being suspended from the New York Yankees. So I could tell you this thing about this kind of bullshit cracking up in the bag. So that would be that these guys going to get paid, suspended for 3 days for using performance enhancement drugs, and then after that they say they're clean, and then the New York Yankees and the New York Times would say that these are very talented players, that the Atlanta Braves are outperforming the Yankees. What would they say about that? And they say about this, you believe the bullshit in the New York Times, or you believe the truth on the New York Post? That's where it's going to hit the New York Post, is because it's going to be fixed around and every day. They just paid on. They're not gonna go. The New York Times ain't gonna give shit about the Yankee about the Yankee fans. They're just working with Atlanta together. When these Korean baseball players are using PEDs, they're using steroids or HGH or whatever performance enhancement drugs they could use in hand, they're not gonna suspend them. They're gonna suspend them for 3 days. Just 3 damn days, right? Just 3 damn days, right? That's why the devil comes to Georgia. That's why. And let me tell you something. That day, that means the Atlanta Braves will win the World Series by using a bunch of Korean baseball players using performance enhancement drugs, being suspended for 3 days. That's the reason why the devil is coming to Georgia. So this is what I agree, that even if Yoko from RandomYoko knows about this messed up situation with the Washington Post, even the Washington Post would favor these PED performed baseball players from Korea, that say that these are super talented players, that they would put the Japanese baseball players as the steroid users. Thanks to the New York Times going to reverse that. But let me tell you what would happen that when the New York Yankees, after going to the World Series, they might just have suspension of 3 Yankee players for using performance enhancement drugs. The three players are going to be Hiroko Kuroda, Moshiro Tanaka, and Ichiro Suzuki, suspended for how many days? 100 days of suspension. Why? Because when the Times know about these Korean baseball players who are suspended for 3 days using PEDs, they want to suspend 3 baseball players who never use those kind of PEDs, that they never use steroids or HGH. Then we'll put Ichiro Suzuki, going to the World Series. I said put Ichiro Suzuki suspended for 100 days because they found him using performance enhancement drugs or steroids, and Moshiro Tanaka for using HGH, and Hiroko Kuroda for using some other kind of sports enhancement drugs, performance enhancement drugs that these 3 baseball players never use. Why? Because that suspension or that article will be 100% complete bullshit, because once what would happen with the New York Post telling the truth about the Korean baseball players that use performance enhancement drugs, what would happen to the New York Post newspaper? It's going, the supermarket tabloids, right? In New York City or in New York, what would happen with those supermarket tabloids? The National Enquirer, the National Examiner, all these papers that are just full of bullshit and gossip. Then next to the front line at the supermarket, these newspapers that are full of gossip and bullshit, you have next the New York Post, because the New York Times favor it to put it in there because they think this is a newspaper that is full of shit, that is a tabloid, where the New York Times is supposed to be, right? And then the New York Times will believe the story that these 3 Japanese baseball players, that Kuroda, Tanaka, and Suzuki, are suspended for 100 days for using steroids, HGH, or other performance enhancement drugs that they have never used. And once you don't see them for 100 days, that means, well, New York Times helped the Atlanta Braves win the World Series, and the New York Yankees lost. This is more like a retroverse of the 1919 World Series, what the Chicago White Sox did. Suspended 7 players, and they only suspend 3 Japanese baseball players in favor of these drug-endorsed Korean baseball players playing in for the Atlanta Braves. That means, yes, this is the kind of bullshit they're going to expose for real. They're going to be exposed naked, and then this is where the New York Post cracked the bullshit, and where the New York Times let them have them all, let these Korean players be suspended for 3 days, let Jose Canseco pay for the New York Times to say that kind of bullshit. So that means when the cat is breaking out of the bag, it would first be the Korean baseball players, written in the New York Post. Then after that, the New York Post will be stand there by the supermarket, next to the supermarket tabloids of the National Enquirer and the Examiner, to be labeled like a tabloid. And the New York Times, this is what somebody called it, and the New York Times would label that, believe that Hiroko Kuroda, Moshiro Tanaka, and Ichiro Suzuki are suspended for 100 days for using performance enhancement drugs from the New York Yankees, saying that they break the Major League Baseball rules actually is the Koreans that are suspended for 3 days, and these three Japanese baseball players are suspended for 100 days for wrongfully accused for using PEDs. You know? Because that way I might just gonna believe Yoko's word if she said about that, because I believe her. Goodbye, folks.